Everyone, we'll get for everybody to catch on, and we will get started tonight for a very special and incredible Facebook Live that I'm very excited about and can't wait to share with you all. So we'll just give a few minutes for everybody else to join, and then hopefully we will get started. Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday. It's this week's Facebook Live with Mubarak Law. And tonight we have a very special guest, attorney Ben Hunter, who I've been working or known for over 10 years now. And we have decided to go on a venture together where Ben is going to be of counsel with us. So tonight's show, I think, is really critical for our community, for those who don't know what it means to have a will or a trust or have an estate plan in place. So I look forward to having Attorney Hunter share his experience and knowledge with us. But before we get started, as always, we have some quick updates. You saw this week that the president signed a few proclamations limiting certain non-immigrant visas. We have some updates on our YouTube channel. And also I was interviewed by News 13 and Fox 35. So check out those interviews to see the updates on the president's proclamation. And we are gonna get started with Attorney Hunter. We have a couple people saying hello. So first, before we get to those, please think of your questions. We're going to answer as many questions as possible today. And I think this is going to be an incredible service that we can offer to the Mubarak Law clients. But before we get started, we always start the day with some good news. First, I would say I was on my friend Jordan Law's show earlier today on their Facebook Live. Then we lost our internet about an hour and a half ago, so I thought this was going to affect today's thing, but I'm here at my house. If you can tell, I'm in a different environment today and not at the office. And that's my good news, is that I was able to make it to today's Facebook Live. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Attorney Ben Hunter. He is the founder of Hunter Law, and he is now going to be Mubarak Law's of counsel for the estate planning. Hey, Ben.
Hey, nice. Thank you for having me. I gotta clarify something, though. I would be remiss if I didn't say that I wasn't a founding partner. I'm a co-partner with my lovely wife, Kara.
As the words came out, I realized that you're not the founding partner.
You made a big mistake. Yeah.
Founding partner of attorney Kara Hunter, who's also Ben's wife. God bless both of you guys. So we do have some people saying hello. Where's our good friend here, Carla La Trenta, saying two awesome guys and fantastic attorneys. Carla is a licensed Florida attorney and practices in North Carolina.
Hey, Carla. Yeah. North and South. She lives in South, practices in North.
And our client, our friend Sabir. And so anyways, we are excited to have you guys today. And so Ben is going to be of counsel for our wills, trusts, and estates. And of counsel means that he is not an official part of the firm, but he is handling our firm strictly estate planning cases. Ben has over 10 years experience in this area of law. And we were having a conversation just as friends the other day. And for a long time, I've been pursuing him to do this with me. And so he has finally agreed. So I feel happy about that. But I didn't realize that the laws vary depending on your citizenship. But I'm going to have him explain all of that. So Ben, what is, estate planning attorney? Like, what areas do you cover? Can you give us some information on that?
There are a lot of different areas that come in play in estate planning. Mostly transactional stuff. I don't do any litigation, but you have real estate, you have business, because people own real estate, people own businesses. You do that end of life planning and advance directives, a will or a trust or healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, living will. You hit a lot of different aspects of the law, even family law. because if you have a couple who have been divorced and they've got minor children and they're doing estate planning, then that's probably incorporated in that divorce decree and or the marital settlement agreement. So I've been involved in that as well. So when it comes to estate, go ahead.
So I was going to ask you, like, for a lot of our viewers, including myself, we kind of need a little quick fundamental crash course on exactly, what is a living will, what is a trust, what is an estate plan. Just so for those who are joining us today, we have of Counsel Ben Hunter with over 10 years experience on wills, trusts, and estates. So if you have any questions, please let us know. And Ben, my question for you is, in a few words, or as many words as you'd like to take, what is the difference between a will or a trust?
Well, you're just jumping right in, huh?
Yeah.
Estate planning is all about control. Controlling your assets while you're alive and well, and controlling your assets at your death. A lot of people focus on beneficiaries, which they do. I have a lot of clients who come in to do planning to make sure that certain individuals don't receive. So estate planning is not only about who you want to receive, it's also about who you don't want to receive. The two big documents when it comes to death planning are the will, last will and testament, or a revocable living trust. And a last will and testament is a vehicle through which you admit to the probate after your death, or you don't do it, the attorney does, and your personal representative that you name in the document. And it would start facilitating the administrative transfer of ownership of your assets that you own in your individual name to your beneficiaries that you've designated under your will. A revocable living trust is a separate entity in and of itself. Your will is not going to be effective until it's admitted to probate. So there's no moving parts in and out of it. A trust is it's a stack of paper, but it's a separate bucket that you would fund by transferring title to your assets into the name of that trust. And you would administer it for yourself as the grantor or the creator of the trust while you're alive and well. And if you become incapacitated, there's language in the trust that gets a successor trustee to come up and to still take care of your assets. And that avoids the guardianship court, where you could end up.
So for layman's terms, or for people who are not that familiar with your area of expertise, then a will would be designating assets or property or money that you own to go directly to certain family members. If you needed additional protections or more complex issues, or you can do a trust and the property gets actually transferred to the trust's name. Is that correct? And then the trust then disperses the assets as a way to kind of separate between the deceased and the heirs.
That's you got a little bit of it. Yeah, that's good. Correct
me if I'm wrong.
I'll try not to just keep talking, but it's more of both documents are going to name folks that you want to receive your assets. Okay, it's just that a trust provides more of a private administration, whereas a will is gone through a court system. There's still confidentiality and privacy involved there, and I like probate not just because I get paid for it, but because you have a judge that oversees everything to make sure that things get done correctly and within a timely manner. Whereas a trust administration, you have a trustee who is likely going to be a family member that will, a beneficiary would have to hire an attorney to sue that trustee if there's any conflict or anything like that. But what the advantages are between the two, I guess, whatever you get depends on the goals that you have in your planning. You can do anything you want in a trust. You can do it in a will. You can do anything you want to do in a will. You can do in a trust. It just the more complex you go, the more appropriate it would be for a trust-based plan. The only red flag that I can tell you that yes, you automatically should do a trust-based plan is if you own real estate, real property in the state of Florida, if that's your domiciliary, and own real property outside of the state, like New York. And that's simply to reduce administration costs and a financial impact that would happen if you have to have two probate administrations in the two states.
So for those who are joining us, we have Attorney Hunter, who's going to be of counsel with us about wills, trusts, and estates. And Ben has prepared, my living will and trust documents. And I didn't realize how much detail is necessary. And it was hard to deal with questions like, what do you want to happen if God forbid one is brain dead, or clinic, what type of decisions do you want to be made on your behalf in one of these medical situations where somebody has to take a decision. Moreover, you have to think about how do you want your assets and your business. And as he mentioned, if you have assets in different states or assets in different states besides Florida, you're going to have extremely high cost for your family or for your heirs if you don't have a trust in place. So we're going to go over all of these details now, and I want everybody just to keep in mind that this is more than just, leaving my vintage watch to my nephew. This is more about, planning. If you can't make a decision for yourself, who's going to make these decisions? And how do you want things to be distributed? So, and I know for a lot of our Muslim and viewers, there are specific ways, you want to have your body handled, right? Or specific ways you want to have your medical treatment facilitated. And not just the Muslim religion, but the Jewish religion has a lot of requirements to abide by. So, these are all things we need to think about if you have, children. So once I went through the process, I realized how critical it is for people to do this. Your family will miss you and will suffer you, but you don't want to add to their grief, or you don't want to lose anything that you've been working your whole life to give them. So, Ben, are there limitations on what can be placed into a will?
Well, I wouldn't say limitations. There's just certain things that I shy away from, including in a will, like whether or not somebody wants to be buried or be cremated, because typically folks don't read the will until after the funeral, so or the celebration of life. So you could go in and you have performed a cremation, but had in the will that you wanted to be buried. So what I recommend my clients do is put together some funeral arrangements. There are companies out there that do pre-need funeral planning, which I highly recommend that you do, because I think that hits on what you said, Naif. It alleviates some of the stress from your family members and allows them a time to grieve rather than make decisions on what a coffin or what urn mom or dad would have liked best.
We do have a question from the comments where it says, what estate documents do you recommend everyone to have at bare minimum?
I'd say at a bare minimum, everybody should have the big four, they call it. And that's the last will and testament, a financial power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, and a living will.
Can you go through all four of those for us?
Sure. So, like I said before, estate planning is all about, it's about control. And the driving force behind that control is the title of your assets. And you can own your assets in three ways. You can own it individually, jointly, or by contract. Owning individually is what your what your last will and testament will control. That is the document that you appoint a personal representative to administer your estate and submit your will for probate. You designate the beneficiaries of your assets, and they conduct the administration. The financial power of attorney is a legal document. It's an advance directive that is effective immediately upon signing. And what that does is it appoints someone to make financial decisions for you, make decisions for you about relating to your property, both real and personal. It covers your finances. It covers the junk that you have in storage that you don't want to admit to having. It covers the the real property that you own, all that good stuff. A healthcare power of attorney is a legal document advance directive that nominates and appoints someone to make healthcare decisions for you in the event that you do not have the capacity to do that. So that would determination be made by a medical professional that you can't give informed consent. They're going to look to that healthcare power of attorney to make that decision for you. Now, living will is where a lot of folks get shy away from or get confused with. And so I like to follow that up with saying a living will, your end of life declaration. And what that is a declaration that you make while you're here, alive and well, that says if you are both mentally and physically incapacitated and you're suffering from one of three conditions, a persistent vegetative state, a terminal illness, or a oh no, you're blanking on me then. Don't do that to me. In-stage or terminal illness. And there are terminal illness, and there are two physicians that review your case. Your attending and your consulting physician. They come and they review, and they come to a conclusion that there's no reasonable medical probability of your recovery. This is a document that says remove any machines or any treatment, any procedures that will only artificially prolong my life. Any medication or procedures done should only be done to alleviate pain and allow me to die a natural death.
Okay, so those are the big four, which was the living will,
living will,
the
life declaration, the healthcare power of attorney,
and healthcare, financial, and what was the first one?
Last will and testament.
Okay, the last will and testament. So I wanted to kind of go through an example of, if somebody doesn't have a living will or last will and testament in place, I'm trying to emphasize the importance of having these documents. What happens if there isn't a document in place? Where does the property go? I know this is going to be case by case depending on the heirs, but can you give us like a brief example of what would happen if one doesn't have one of these documents in place?
Right. So if you fail to plan, the state of Florida has a plan in place for you. It's called the Laws of Intestate Succession. And depending on the family dynamics and the makeup of the individual who passed away, it could go a number of different ways. Let's say for me personally, let's say I die, I kick the bucket. I have a wife, Kara, who's my law partner, and three beautiful young girls, Harper, Sawyer, and Renner. If I don't have a will, then everything passes the way you would expect to my wife, Kara, as the surviving spouse. But if I have a child from a prior marriage, then what could happen is the assets would be split, 50% going to my surviving spouse, and the other 50% distributed amongst my children. And my children are 8, 6, and 3 years old, so they haven't lived long enough to be able to make mistakes or figure out what I need to protect them from, other than protecting them from themselves, because they're so young. And if you have minor children, then you definitely should.
I mean, so we're on the subject of children, and I wish everybody, like we say in Arabic, a long life, right? We don't want to ever cut anyone's life short. But, the truth is we all are going to face this at some point in time in our lives. And sometimes it's expected and sometimes it's not expected. So for people with children, and God forbid something happens to both parents and their minor children involved, what would happen at that point?
So your children, you want to have somebody that you trust and that will raise your kids in the manner that you would, right? The only way to make that determination or be the one who's in the driver's seat of picking the guardian in the event that both mother and father pass away is through any last will and testament, where you name the guardian of minor children. If you do not have this, there's another form, but it's not really recommended because of the complexities involved with it. At least in my opinion. But if you do not have that in your will and you have these minor children, then you don't get to pick who is the guardian of your children. The court gets to pick. Now, more than likely, it's going to be a family member. We all have that one family member that we don't want to raise our kids. You never know. That family member could be after the assets rather than the kids.
Right. We could have somebody that's maybe a blood relationship closer to the deceased, but it's not the best person to raise the children. And so, I mean, I just think there's nothing worse for a parent. I can only imagine that if every night you're worried about your children's safety and their future, and if you don't have this planned, then you really are not planning for their future in worst case scenario, and God forbid anything was to happen. But you don't want the courts to decide. You don't want it to be something fought after. You really do need to think about having a plan in place. So I know that's very somber and it's a difficult topic for many people to address, but I think it is necessary. We need to have these honest conversations with ourselves and say, are we prepared for this, and what will happen to our children or even our estates? So to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, I'm going to talk about or bring up this website. You know, Ben, is this Florida treasure hunt website real deal? It says that you can find money in your name. Can you explain what this website is?
It's a real deal. So Florida treasure hunt.gov, a lot of folks think that if you don't claim property, like if you move to a different state, or every state has this, but let's say if you move to a different county or move to a different house and you didn't get your deposit back from FPL or from Comcast or whatever, or Spectrum because they cut your power off during your workday, then they'll hold it for a little bit, and then they don't want to hold on to it anymore, so they send it to the state, which is the FloridaTreasureHunt.gov. So everybody who's on this call or on Facebook Live should, after you get off, go to FloridaTreasureHunt.gov and search your name to see if you have any unclaimed property that you can put some paperwork together and submit it and have that in your back pocket.
So if you had some kind of money or deposit or a refund that should have gone to you and never made it to you, these people eventually, whoever was holding the money or cash would send it to the state of Florida, and you should be able to find it here. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Ben, our firm, we do personal injury, like car accidents and dog bites, but we are very well known for our immigration representation and for the work we do with individuals who are foreign born outside the US. So I thought that it was interesting to learn, and I was actually shocked about the treatment of an heir if they're a citizen or if they're not a citizen. You told me some really pretty staggering facts about if a spouse is not a U.S. citizen, they're not going to get the same benefits as a U.S. citizen who would inherit without issue. So tell us a little bit about that if you don't have a proper document in place. So I guess if my family members or heirs are not American citizens and I don't have a document in place, can you shed some light on how this could be detrimental?
So what this really plays into is estate taxes, and in USA we have the unlimited marital deduction, which means that you can leave $1 billion to your surviving spouse, and you wouldn't pay your surviving spouse wouldn't pay any estate tax on that transfer. So take it for example, Bill Gates dies tomorrow. He leaves everything to his wife Melinda. Melinda will not have to pay any estate taxes on that transfer. The federal government's waiting for Melinda to die. But when it comes to a spouse who's a non-citizen, then there's no unlimited marital deduction. There is an exemption amount of $60,000, which means you own $60,000 of your assets that you pass to your non-citizen surviving spouse are exempt from tax. Everything over that is going to get hit with a state tax.
So I just
could be a substantial.
Really emphasize that. You stated that if Bill Gates' spouse, she could inherit, millions without any tax repercussions, simply because she's a U.S. citizen. And it's not about inheriting even millions, but if your spouse or heir is not a U.S. citizen, the tax limitation is $60,000. So that means anything above $60,000, guys, folks,
Is at
ladies,
risk.
is at risk. So, I mean, your house is probably worth $60,000. Your life insurance policy, however small, it would just be really such a shame that you could have avoided losing 30 to 40% of the value for your family members who you've been working your whole life to support for, to go down the drain because you didn't have a proper document in place. So
I'm glad you said it. Life insurance policy, the death benefit, because a lot of folks are unclear on the impact of a life insurance payout. The death benefit of a life insurance policy is calculated in the estate tax calculation.
Okay, so if you have a policy of $50,000 and your house is worth $200,000 and your spouse is not a citizen, then they are like $190,000 outside of the threshold if they don't have a proper, will or trust in place. They could lose 30-40% of that value just to go to the U.S. government, which could have been avoided had there been a particular document in place. And Ben, what is the name of that kind of document?
So that would be a qualified domestic trust, a QDOT, it's referred to. But I think you avail yourself of Mubarak Law and you get that non-citizen spouse into a citizen spouse, and then everything will be taken care of.
And we do, we are joking. I've known Ben for a long time, but there's so much overlap and necessity between my work and his work, because most of my clients' family members, there's going to be some who are not citizens. So, at first I thought this would just be like a nice complementary thing, because unfortunately many Arabs, Muslims, minorities, they don't have documents in place. And, this is really about, generational wealth, passing it down. Like, how do you make sure that your family's going to continue to move on up? And without these documents, you could be limiting that. We do have another quick comment here from the comments. Akile Shaloya, he says, great news, keep up the good work. Akile, we cannot wait for your new baby to arrive next month.
Right,
and you know what you need to do. You need to get a living will in place for you and your wife, and make sure that your child is taken care of. So we know the importance of this. And I was on the phone with Ben earlier today. I was like, Ben, how long do you do a consultation for? And he's like, well, I like to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours with my clients. And I was like kind of taken back, because not many attorneys will sit with an individual for an hour and a half to 2 hours before they're getting hired, and his reasoning behind it was he wants to get to know the individual. He wants to be sure he understands the need of that family and that individual. And I just thought that was really refreshing, and it was a clear dedication of his passion to it. Victor, I do see your question, and I'll just give you a quick immigration update. How will the new visa pause affect renewals? It doesn't affect those that are in the United States. My friend Vincent, you don't have to worry about that. I said Victor, I'm sorry, but Vincent, you don't have to worry about that. So back to wills and estates. A lot of people ask, how can I keep this document, or where should I keep this document? Or God forbid, what if I lose this document, Ben? What happens then?
So if you lose it, you should probably get another one done just in case. But there are attorneys that will keep original documents. I try not to, but I will keep original documents for some clients. I prepare a portfolio for folks to take home, and they can either put it in their safe deposit box at the bank, which more and more banks are doing away with. But if you do that, make sure somebody knows you have a safe deposit box, because nobody ever tells anybody that they have that. I recommend folks just take it at home, put it on a shelf or with their other important documents. When I'm handing it over at the delivery, and the client will go, well, what if my house burns down? And I look at him and I say, get out of the house. because if you're out of the house, then we can just recreate everything. We'll give you a 100% money back redrafting, no additional charge if your house burns down. Just don't go after those documents.
If you don't take away any advice tonight, Attorney Ben Hunter says, if your house is on fire, get out of the house.
Yeah.
Make sure you're protected. But I also, like with many of our immigration cases, I tell our clients just to keep digital copies, right? Like something handy. If you have digital access to it and you're not sure what you put and you want to check, you can just check the digital copy instead of leaving the original from its safe place. And, that increases the likelihood of a document being lost.
Right.
We have about 10 more minutes left on tonight's live, or actually we're at 31 minutes, but I think we do have more to discuss and we want to take more questions. Today is about wills, trusts, and estates. I don't want to take any immigration questions yet. I see another one in the comments. So Mr. Ahmed, I will try to address you before we leave. But Ben is now of counsel for Mubarak Law. And for many individuals, I think this is a real service that we can now offer to you to protect your family, protect your wishes, make sure you've covered all the bases. It's more than just having a power of attorney to sell a car or to sell a piece of property back home in Palestine or Jordan or Syria. You need to make sure that your health wishes are protected. You need to make sure your children are protected, and just all of your hard work is protected. Like, I can't fathom the idea that you could lose 30 to 40% of all of your hard work because you didn't have a document in place. Or you don't even have a plan in place. If something happens to you and the children's mother or father, you're going to leave it up to the courts to decide who they should be with. I really think everybody should take the time to reflect on the importance of these documents. It's not a conversation we want to have, but I think, somebody with Ben who's going to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours with you, you rip the Band-Aid off, you do it, you get it done, and then you can hopefully, sleep easier at night, knowing that you've done all you can for your family and that you are prepared. I do want to share just the Mubarak Law estate planning website. And again, Ben Hunter and Hunter Law in Sarasota. Of course, our phone number. And you all know that we do our monthly newsletters where we send out the updates on immigration. We send out the updates on personal injury. And now we will start to send out updates on wills, trusts, and estates and show you any example cases that we have, or, people who are thanking us. And, we mentioned personal injury. I want to touch on, sometimes we receive a settlement or an inheritance and it is a minor child. So this is something that we want to protect for the child until they're of a certain age, to make sure that they don't waste this money or nobody takes advantage of this money. So, even if you're well off or you have an insurance policy and something happens to you, you should have a plan in place, because maybe your kids are taken care of financially, but you don't want it to be wasted or taken advantage of. Ben, right. Do you have anything else you want to tell that we haven't covered yet?
I do, and I want to hit on some of that, what you said about life insurance policy, is that some of the things that you can do in estate planning is, you may have a life insurance policy that pays out a substantial death benefit, but you could direct that death benefit to be into a protective trust, so that those funds that you leave behind at your death are protected from bad things that happen to good people. Or, the John Morgans of the world. You get in a car, you pass away, life insurance comes in, gets in your wife's individual name, she gets in a car accident, and John Morgan comes in on his white horse and sues you. Your insurance doesn't cover it for one reason or another, because you have this life insurance policy, they go after it, and now what you left behind is vanished. So with estate planning, you can own your assets consistent with your estate plan to protect your family. I would say that estate planning doesn't stop at an attorney. Estate planning is to be effectively pursued and facilitated or executed. You need a team of trusted advisors. It's an attorney, it's a CPA, it's an insurance professional, it's a certified financial planner. These folks, and they should all talk to each other. They should all talk about you with each other, so that they can make sure that they are not doing you a disservice when trying to meet your goals to protect your family.
Ben, do you communicate with people's like financial advisors? Do you work, in tandem with them about, their individuals? So that way you have like a complete picture and a full picture of everything.
Yes, I do. And the team, the team standpoint, I think is the best way to go, because you're able to. If I talk to a client, they say, "Oh yeah, my account is titled this way. Beneficiary designations are X, Y, and Z." That likely isn't the case unless I have confirmation that with saying that. And the easiest way to get that confirmation is from those trusted advisors. And those trusted advisors may want to know, well, why are you doing this instead of this? I thought annuity was a great idea. Not always, but I take calls and work that way with all those folks. So,
Ben, I can't thank you enough for your time tonight, and I'm truly excited to be working closely with somebody who's as passionate of their area of law as I am with mine. And I think that the Arab community, the Latino community, the Muslim community, they have a lot to learn about wills, trusts, and estates, and the importance of protecting their heirs. So if you guys do want to schedule a consultation with Ben, please contact us. We will then have you complete an intake form. There is a consultation fee. As I mentioned, he will spend an hour and a half with you all, as compared to some consultations with other firms are probably 20 or 30 minutes. So, subscribe to our newsletter. We'll give you guys the updates. Next week, we will have an immigration update for you on our Facebook Live. And I'm going to let Ben say any last words before we end tonight's Facebook Live.
Well, I would just clarify that don't let a consultation fee keep you from doing anything, because that consultation fee is going to be applied towards whatever flat fee we do on the planning that you choose.
It's true. Just like we do with our immigration clients. If you pay a consultation fee, you typically have 2 to 4 weeks to decide if you're going to hire, and that is applied to your fee. So, I mean, if this is something that you need done, you can at least come and educate yourselves. It's not like simply leaving a piece of, on a piece of paper, I want to leave my watch to nephew. I think there's so much more you guys need to consider, like your health, your wealth, and your children's futures and your heirs. So, please let us know if we can do anything else. I am excited for this, and I know that Ben is too. And anything else, Ben?
No, yeah, I'm definitely excited. I'm looking forward to it. And I would say that I try to start every consultation off with a prospective new client and let them know that I don't like doing business with people I don't like, and I don't expect a prospective new client to do that either. So if you get into a meeting with an attorney that you don't like, that could be me. You don't like because I don't tell very funny jokes. My wife will tell you I'm not a funny guy, but I try. So I'm corny. But you want to be the way that I feel about this is that you want to be represented by somebody that you trust. That when called upon in a time of need, and you're not there, that person can step in and represent you in the way that you want to be represented.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I always advise the same. Find somebody you're comfortable with. You're going to be spending a lot of time with this attorney and with this individual. And, it might take 1 or 2 consultations, but spend the time getting to know who is going to have such an important role in your life and thereafter. And that leaves us tonight on today's Facebook Live. And Ben, thank you so much for taking time from your boss and from your 3 children. And I hope you all are doing well. And I look forward to seeing you all soon and in Orlando.
I'll be there.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.